Hey y'all, it's Ashley at the Realm of Kidlit Comics, and as you can see from the title of today's video, we're here to do our end of the year book tag. So I had wanted to do this a little bit earlier, but with traveling, etc., this was going to be the only time, and not being able to edit, this was going to be the only time that I was going to be able to do the video. So this tag was originally created by Ariel Bassett, I think, in 2021. If you go back, which I'll link the video down in the description box below, if you go back to her 2021 video, she's updated the questions for 2025. So these questions may not be the same as previous years because the questions were updated. So I really did not spend much time thinking about these questions before I decided to sit down and film. I was like, we're just going to sit down, we're going to vibe, and we're going to film, because that's just the way that I like to do things, and that's just the way that things are going to go. So let's just go with it and jump right in. All right, so the first question is, are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? Y'all, I mean, is that really even a question at this point? Because if I go to my currently reading on Goodreads, that's going to tell me the books that I've started that I need to finish this year. And honestly, I don't even know if that's truly accurate, because at the end of the day, to be fair, there are books that I'm currently reading that are not marked as currently reading on Goodreads. Goodreads is just, sometimes it gets things, sometimes it doesn't get things. And actually, you know what? There are, I would say, 4-ish books that I'm not actively reading right now that I need to finish, because I'm either waiting for my hold to come back or I haven't gotten to it yet. So the first one is going to be Roar of the Lambs by Jameson Shea. I literally, oh my god, this is wild. Literally the hold on Libby just came through. That's pretty wild. That is a young adult horror. Breaking into Sunlight by John Cochran is another one that I need to finish. That one is a middle grade contemporary. Then we have Hurricane Heist, which is the second in the Sherlock Society by James Ponti. This is a middle grade mystery series. And then I also have The Last Blood Carver, which is the first book in the Last Blood Carver duology by Vanessa Lee. And I believe this is young adult, I know for a fact that this is young adult fantasy. Girl, I've read like 67% of this book. Granted, I really like the audiobook. I own a physical copy of that book, but I really enjoy the audiobook. And so I was like, I'm going to wait for the audiobook to come back, because I waited too long to listen to it and then somebody else wanted it. All right, question number 2 is, do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? Well, we hit autumn September 22nd, and we are pretty much at the end of October. No, there's not a specific book that I transitioned into. I think that I am more likely to read mystery, thriller, horror, etc., like everybody else during this time of year. Although I think I have also been more inclined to start reading more fantasy. Like this week alone, I've been reading nothing but fantasy. So I don't think there's a specific book or specific thing that transitions me. I just think that I'm more inclined to read specific genres, but that's about it. The next question is there a new release you're still waiting for? Honestly, not really. I think I'm so in touch with new releases in terms of like children's, middle grade, young adult. I think the closest thing that I am waiting for is probably Marissa Meyer's new book, which I do already have a copy of it. It comes out in November, The House of Sapphire. I don't know if it's Sapphire, but it is I think it's a slight Bluebeard retelling, who I think is an interesting character. I am excited for this one. So, I mean, technically, yes, I do have this one that I'm looking forward to, but I think off the top of my head, I don't have any other things that may be like on pre-order or anything like that I'm super excited for, especially because now that I think about it, everything that I have that's pre-ordered is a special edition of something that I've already really enjoyed. And I think that's it. I think that's like, there's nothing else that I have on my radar for November and December. Now, had I filmed this in like September, it'd be a different story for October, right? But considering that I'm filming this and posting this in October, November and December is where release stuff, like release materials, it starts to slow down drastically. At least it does in Kidlit, because I can see that firsthand, especially in December. So there's nothing in particular 100% that is sparking my interest that will release in November or December. And I say that now, and then come next month in December and be like, oh, I need to get my hands on that. I need to read that. It's going to be a mess, because I know me. The next question is an absolute horde question, because there's no way that I could possibly choose to just 3 books. So question 4 is, what are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? Like, what? 3 books is wild. 3 books is like nothing. 3 books is okay. So in anticipation of this question, this is probably the one question that I kind of halfway thought about. I did pull some things off of my shelf that I do want to finish. I mean, it's a lot, so bear with me, okay? I couldn't do 3. 3 was just not realistic for me. First up, we have The Poison King. Now, I pre-ordered this the same time that I pre-ordered the second book in the Dragon Ship series, because these release close together, and these were 2 books that I enjoyed that released last year. The first in each of these series I enjoyed. I wanted to read The Poison King when I did a reading vlog, just kind of mood reading fantasy for the week, but unfortunately I didn't get to it. I am hoping to get to this before the end of the year, because I'm anticipating another book in the series, unless I read this and I'm like, oh, okay, this is definitely just going to be a duology. I am thinking that there might be more than 2 books in this series, depending upon how this one ends. And these 2 particularly are series that I do want to keep up with as they release. But I enjoyed the first book. Middle grade fantasy, illustrated. It's very interesting. The story ended in a heartbreaking, like, it wasn't even a cliffhanger. It was a heartbreaking conclusion. And so I'm excited to see how we get to this point, right? Because this image for me is something very fascinating. And I'm curious to know how the author is going to take the story, but definitely high on my radar for the end of the year. Now, some things that I'm going to be discussing are not Kidlit. That's fine. At this point, like, it is what it is. I know I primarily talk about Kidlit, but if an adult book makes some here every once in a while, it's not that big of a deal. My channel, you know what? I'm just coming to terms with the fact that as my channel, right, I can kind of do what I want to do. That's the whole point of having a channel. You make the power moves. So I do want to finish The Raven Scholar. I was supposed to buddy read The Raven Scholar this month. Unfortunately, it got away from me and I didn't get to it. I mean, this is a chunky book. I'm looking at the number of pages, and it is 646 pages long. And maybe this is this including the author's note? Oh, that includes acknowledgements. Without acknowledgements, it's 643. I mean, yeah. But this is the Illumicrate edition of this book. It's absolutely beautiful. It's signed by the author. I don't think there's anything. Oh, yes, there is. It's a very, very pretty book. And I am happy to have it in my possession. Even the end papers are very pretty. I think on both sides. Yeah, the end papers are very, very nice. So I am excited to pick this one up. I have heard nothing but good things about this. I'm trying to get more into adult fantasy, y'all, okay? I'm slowly but surely, I'm doing it. We're going to make it happen. But I really would like to finish that before the end of the year. Another Another adult title that I would like to read is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. This is the Owl Crate version of this book, the Owl Crate exclusive version of this book. I've heard very interesting things about this. Some people seem to really, really like it. Some people not so much, but I am excited for it. lesbian vampires is where it's at, man. This is another really pretty book, just so you could see. Like, it's very, very pretty. But I'm excited about this one. And I also have, I think I have the Raven Scholar, and I have this one on audiobook. I'm 90% sure I have both of them on audiobook. So even if I need to do multiple ways of reading the books, I do have access to that. Some young adult things that I want to read that have been on my radar. 3 of them are Book Talk darlings, and I own all 3, and I need to read them. 2 of these were gifted to me. 1 I purchased myself. This Woven Kingdom by Tahara Mafi. Liv has talked about the series a lot, and I feel like I just need to go ahead and get into it. I'm currently reading Shatter Me by Tahara Mafi. I know I'm late to the game, but that's okay. That's, you pick up books whenever you get a chance to pick up books. And so I've heard good things about the series, and I need to get to it. I meant to get to it last year. It didn't happen. Carval by Stephanie Garber. I am supposed to be buddy reading this one with someone at work, and she's ready to start. So really, honestly, it's me holding up the process. And then the last one is Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. I've heard very interesting things about the series. Not entirely the best, but still 3 books that have been very popular. Oh, not me using the books to push the camera. They've been very popular booktube darlings, and I would like to get to them before the year ends. Now, this next thing that I'm going to show you is beyond ambitious, okay? I'm going to be 100% honest with you. 9 times out of 10, this is probably not going to happen. But I just talked to her, Ray, and we were talking about we both just needed to book a break from reading Warriors. However, I would like to get through this next set of books. I am not purchasing none of that until I get through this next wave that I need to get through. So as you all know, I read the first arc this year, fell in love, obsessed. I mean, just disgustingly obsessed. This next set that I have is the second arc, which is the New Prophecy. So we have Midnight, which is book 1. We have Moonrise, which is book 2. Dawn, which is book 3, which that is bent a little bit. I'm not sure how that got bent like that. Then we have Starlight, book 4. Twilight, book 5. And Sunset, which is book 6. But the crazy thing about all of this, y'all, is before I can get to the New Prophecy, there's so many other things to read. Like, I have some super editions that I still need to make it through, which is why I'm like, this is a stretch goal. If anything, like, I can see that stack being very doable in the next 2 months. Not really intimidating, that stack per se. However, this whole situation, very intimidating, because I'm not even through the super editions and everything else that I need to be through before I get to the second arc. I mean, we have like the short story collections, Tales from the Clans, Shadows of the Clans. We have Legends of the Clans, The Untold Stories. I have graphic novels somewhere around here. They're here somewhere. I have graphic novels that I still haven't made it through. I finished Fire Star's Quest, which was the first super edition, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe after Blue Star's Prophecy, there's still like another 2 or 3 super editions that I would need to make it through before I even come close to picking up the New Prophecy. So I think that best case scenario, if I could just prep myself to start the second story arc by next year, that would be good. Do I think I'm going to be able to get to the second story arc this year? By the end of this year, probably not. But if I can prepare myself to get to that point, that will be satisfying and I will be happy about that. Now, I do have other graphic novels in this year that I need to read. Where they're located, oh, I see them now. They're down there. They're definitely down there. It's a lot. So we're going to see how that's going to go. Question number 5 is, what trends have you noticed in your reading this year? I've read a lot slower this year than I did last year. Last year, at this point, I probably would have been close to maybe 700 or 800 books. This year, I think I'm like maybe at this point right now, probably close to around 450. My goal is 500. But as y'all know, like my goal is never the actual number of books, it's the number of pages. Like that's what I consider to be most important. And I'm not going to get into much of that because there is a question about reading goals. But trends, I've read less picture books than I've ever read. This year I read a lot less picture books. I just have not been feeling 2025 releases. It's not to say that I haven't read any picture books, because to be fair, I've read about maybe like 175 have been picture books this year. Of the books that I've read, maybe not even 175. 175 is a stretch. Maybe like 150-ish. I'll have to look at my spreadsheet to give you an exact number, but I think 150 is probably a little bit more realistic. So kind of on the lower end, considering like how much I would typically read in a week for picture books. And I'm not really reading a lot of 2025 releases. Like this last wave of picture books I just did, I'm doing for some professional development stuff, and a lot of those picture books are from like the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. Some of them from the 1800s. We're not going to talk about that. But I don't know. It's just something about this year's releases that I'm not necessarily vibing with. Actually, to be fair, like I, in these past few months, have not been reading a lot of 2025 releases. Usually I'm very on top of new release material, but right now I just am not drawn to it the way I have been in the past. So I'm reading a lot of backlists, which is good. But also for like work purposes, I need to be reading a little bit more books that are considered to be new release. Now, how much I'm going to finish in November and December, I don't know. I mean, I just am feeling like maybe next year will just be a reset year for me. But definitely slower. Reading trends for me this year has been slower. Reading a lot more physically. This month, though, has been a lot of audio. October is an audio heavy month just because of things that I've had going on. But I've read a lot more physically this year than I have in the past. And that was the goal, was to read more digitally and physically over audiobooking. And that just has to do with, you know, just wanting to see my difference in retention. I'm not really noticing any difference, but I think it's good because I don't want to, and if you do this is not shame on anybody that does primarily listen audio wise, but for me, I don't want to get to a point where I'm listening to audio and I lose, I don't want to say lose the ability, but I struggle with reading physically and digitally because I'm conditioning myself to listen to audio only. So I want to make sure that I'm spreading the love. That way, every format to me, I can still approach and, like, for lack of a better term, from an equitable standpoint. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm keeping that personal skill set in practice, because sometimes I can feel myself defaulting to audio, like, oh, I'm not going to even attempt, because it does take longer to read print and digital, and so it's easy to fall back on audio. And this is not shame. I'm an avid audiobook listener, y'all. This is just a personal thing of mine, and I feel the need to say that because I don't want anybody to get the wrong perception. But I just want to make sure that I don't lean on it so much that I grow to resent reading physically, like in print or an ebook. So there's that. But I think those are like two of the major trends that I've observed. Question number 6, how do you feel about your reading goals and anything you want to change, adjust? You know, I feel fine. I don't think I feel any type of way explicitly about my reading goals, because any number of books read is a good year, right? I don't think I put too much emphasis on number, even though I have a goal in terms of like the number of pages I want to read, right? That's not what I aim to complete for the year. So it's kind of interesting, where it's like I do set a goal, but am I reading to reach that goal? No, I'm just reading. And so if I reach that goal, I reach that goal. If I don't, I don't. If I surpass it, I surpass it. Like it's a very lax type of thing. So I don't really feel any type of way about it. Like I said, I just noticed that I'm reading slower this year, but also the quality is a little different than it was last year. I think when you just consume everything, the quality starts to feel a little like, dang, like, you know, or they're just putting out anything nowadays. That's how it can start to feel. I think this year has been a year where I'm a little bit more selective, where I've grown to be a little bit more selective. And that's a pro and a con. But in terms of my goal, like, in terms of a Goodreads goal, I should say that the number of books I want to read, the number of pages, I'm kind of just like, it's whatever. The goal that I feel some type of way about, that I think I need to get a better handle on, is reading this physical TBR. That is a goal that is very important to me. That is more important to me than it is in the number of books I read, the number of pages. Like reading this down and making space for things that I really, really want to keep and things that just don't need to be on my shelves is extremely important to me at this point. Like, it is like number one priority. And that kind of shifts into question 7, which asks about, like, have you started planning your goals for 2026? And the answer to that question for me is no and yes. No, I haven't thought about number of books I want to read, or like, you know, 26 and 26 and blah, 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 blah. But this physical TBR, yes, I have thought strategically about like how, or I've thought about a strategic way to approach reading down these books and unhauling things and getting things on the shelf. And I do a read it or unhaul it right now, which is good, but I also need to be doing reading of these materials outside of video content, right? I think it's great for content. I think it's definitely an interesting way to engage audience, and I think some people have done it really, really well. Like Becca's series, Shelve It or Scrap It, like, is just phenomenal production. But my TBR is so large at this point that I cannot keep it to filming across a week or 2 weeks and, you know, I'm reading 6 to 8 books at tops. Like, that's not going to do anything for me. And so for me, it has to be a consistent process that's happening all year long. That's not saying that I won't do my read it or unhaul it videos throughout the year, or that they won't be still like one a month, but I do think that that reading has to happen outside of video content, right? And I think that that mentality has also contributed to this fact that I'm not reading as much material that is new release, and a lot of the stuff that I'm reading is now backlist material, because a lot of material that I own on my shelves is backlist material, right? I do have newer stuff that I get sent by publishers, but in terms of me like pre-ordering and stuff like that, like, it's really not as much as I think it may seem like it is. I mean, I am subscribed, I think I've talked about this before, like I'm subscribed to 2 book boxes, but I've started skipping where I can skip, because I don't want to bring anything in that I'm not genuinely interested in, or that I don't want, but I have to be very mindful of that, because some people have limitations on, you know, how you can or cannot skip. But my pre-orders are very limited, but it is the solicited and unsolicited stuff. And it's giving me a run for my money, and I have to figure out a way to handle it, because I have a whole shelf over here. I don't even know if y'all can see it. Let me see if I can turn this camera. You see this shelf right here? This shelf right here, right? This shelf is stuff that I have been sent, that I haven't even cataloged in my app to shelve on my shelf. It's this, and there's stuff behind it. And for some people, they're like, oh, that's a great problem to have. Yes, it can be a great problem to have. But if you're not reading as fast as you are intaking material, like I said, solicited and unsolicited, it can become a problem. And what I would love to do is that this older stuff that I've had for years, like stuff that I have collected, stuff that I have bought, because this hasn't always been the case. Like I haven't always received stuff like that for as long as I've been making content, as long as I've been a part of the book community. That hasn't always been the case. So what I'm hoping is that I can read some of this stuff that I've had on my shelf for years and decide whether it is something that I feel passionate about, that I can see myself rereading, or does it need to leave, and make way for this newer material to come on the shelf so it can also go through the same vetting process. So yeah, I think the goal that I've been thinking of primarily is how to balance supporting my library and also handling this, because if you know me, you know, I mean, I work at the library. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that. So, I mean, by default, I want to support the effort that my job is doing in the community and the access that it provides. But at the same time, it's like, girl, you can't keep doing this. This is not okay. So we're going to figure something out there. But that's it. Let me know in the comments down below your answers to these questions, or anything in particular that you're looking forward to reading for the end of the year, anything that new releases, or, you know, what are your reading goals? Have you reached your reading goal? Have you set reading goals for next year? Just, yeah, answer the questions however you may feel down in the comments below. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. If you're looking for ways to follow me on social media, support this channel, all the links will be down in the description box below. And I'll be back with another video soon. Bye.